semester. All right, get everyone's attention. I'm going to have the sign-in sheet floating around in a few minutes, so just look out for that. I want to introduce our speaker today. This is Donna Stokes, one of the professors from the University of Houston. You know, she's made a few visits here to UHCL, but this is her first time in the new STEM building.
Yes, gorgeous.
She was instrumental in a lot of stuff we did, but I don't want to name everything. But one thing is, some of you may have met her. She was like pretty much running the Texas section of the APS meeting. If you guys went to the one at University of Houston, you may have gotten a chance to meet her. So today, you know, she does a lot of things in physics, most experimental physics, but today she's going to be actually talking about some things as far as teacher preparation and, you know, just another option and other things that are interesting things that are going on in terms of what we're doing in physics education. It's a lot different and a lot deeper than what a lot of people may have thought. So, turn over to Donna.
Thank you. So, no applause. So I actually visited the campus about 10 years ago or more and gave a talk on some of the condensed matter research that I do. But now I'm kind of switched my research focus to look at physics education research and student success in STEM courses and to physics teacher preparation. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Unfortunately, they don't have enough ports for me to plug in my changer, so I'm going to be going back and forth, peeking around this terminal to see you guys. So I'll talk about some of the effective components that we have for physics teacher preparation. So many of you may not be thinking about whether you would like to be a physics teacher, but we like to tell our undergraduates and graduate students that it is an alternate career path for students with a physics degree. And it can be a very rewarding one. So I want to give you just a little bit of background about what we do. So all across the nation, there are issues with putting qualified teachers that teach STEM in the classroom, in the K through 12 classroom, but mostly at the high school level, so that we can prepare our students for moving on to college. So teacher attrition in these areas is pretty low. And that's what I'm going to look at and give you an overview of what is the teacher attrition as it relates to physics and physics education and STEM as in general. Then I'll give you an overview of the teacher preparation program that we have at University of Houston for preparing STEM teachers. And this is the program that our physics majors go through if they want to become a STEM teacher. Also, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about how we are approaching teaching physics to teacher educators. And we use what's called an inquiry method, and some of you may be familiar with this, and some may not, but I'll give you a little bit of background about that. And I'll talk about a physics by inquiry course that we've developed to particularly prepare our physics majors who want to be teachers, but in addition to prepare other teachers who may not have a teacher certification in physics, but who are oftentimes assigned to teach physics courses. So many of you may have taken a physics course in high school. And how many of you think your physics teacher was certified to teach physics? Very good. But there were a lot of hands down. So that means you either had a physics teacher that wasn't so great, or the physics teacher was the coach and the physics teacher was the biology teacher. So they really weren't certified to teach physics, but nonetheless, they were assigned to do so because they needed a warm body in the classroom to do that. And so the biggest thing I'll talk about is the impact of what we've done with our physics education program for teachers and how it's impacted their career paths as pre-service teachers and some outcomes of what we have. So teacher attrition. Teaching is becoming a career of movement in and out may be permanent. So we have this issue where teachers are trained, they move into the school districts, but oftentimes they only last 2 years. If they last 5, really good. So teachers are moving out, but other things that we see is we have teachers who've been in the classrooms for a long time, they're retiring earlier. And then we have teachers just leaving the profession altogether because it's either not fulfilling or they find other employment that's more rewarding. So how do we deal with this attrition, keeping teachers in the classroom, recruiting them, preparing them, and retaining them? What do we need to do to make sure that we create a strong pipeline for keeping teachers in the STEM classroom. So in urban centers like Houston, we lose about 50 to 70% of beginning teachers in the first 4 to 6 years. That's a lot of teachers. That's a lot of teachers that leave just in between the first 5 years or so. As I said, baby boomer teachers born in the 40s to the 60s, those teachers aren't staying in the classroom as long. They're retiring after about 20 to 25 years. 1/3 of those teachers remain in the workforce that are there now, plan to leave for whatever reason. And this is a big cost to us as a nation and to the state of Texas. So with teachers moving in and out, it costs about $2.2 billion per year. And in Texas, we know we are a pretty big state. Of course, we have to do everything big. About 800 million of that is lost in Texas. So we really have to think about how to train our teachers so that they will remain in the classroom, and we need to make sure we're training them to serve the population that exists in the various states. So the present day population of Texas is what the US population will resemble in about 2040. So currently we have about 37% Hispanic and 45-ish% of white. So that's going to kind of be the representation for the whole nation in about 2040. So we need to train teachers that look like the people we're going to serve. In the state of Texas, of course, we want to train students in Hispanic backgrounds, African American backgrounds, some of the underrepresented minorities, as well as white, but we want to train them and have them remain in the classroom. So here's some numbers just comparing kind of Houston and Texas to one another. And this is looking at Houston Independent School District, which is the 7th largest school district in the nation. 80% of teachers have 5 years or less experience. So if you have a little brother, cousin, nephew who's going into a classroom into HISD, it's most likely that the teacher that they're seeing in that day has less than 5 years experience. 50% of principals also have less than 5 years experience. More than 30% of middle school math and science teachers teach out of field. So what we mean by out of field is they're certified to teach in one area, but they're actually teaching in another. So they're teaching out of their field. 13% of high school math teachers are teaching out of field, and 28% of physics teachers are teaching out of field. Okay, in HISD, about 75% of the students are economically disadvantaged, and in that school district, 80% of the students are minorities. So we really have to look at the demographics, the socioeconomic backgrounds, and many different things of the students to make sure that we're preparing teachers who will be able to serve those students and teachers who will want to remain in the teaching profession. So how do we address these attrition rates? Well, for physics at least, which is what I'm focusing on, we want to produce more qualified physics teachers. How do we produce more qualified physics teachers? I'll tell you that in just a second. So nationwide, 47 school physics teachers have a degree in physics. So that doesn't sound terrible until you compare it to other science disciplines and other disciplines such as humanities. So in biology, it's only 73%, and humanities 80%. So we're pretty much way lower than most of the other disciplines in having people who are qualified in the classroom. So in Texas, about 1,600 science teachers are certified each year. Less than 2% are certified in physics and math, and only 1 to 10% have science composite certification. So science composite certifications allows a teacher to teach multiple science disciplines. They can teach physics, chemistry, geology, and biology. Somewhere in there. I think I got the geo part right. So we want to be able to train teachers, at least for physics, to have either a major or a minor in physics, or to be able to earn that composite certification, which will allow them to teach physics. But that's still not the ideal case when they earn the composite certificate, but I'll tell you a little bit how we address the students that do earn this type of certification. So how do we meet the needs of the students enrolled in the physics courses, those interested in teaching, and those who don't know they want to teach yet? So a lot of people don't know they want to teach, but some people earn a bachelor's degree, they get out, they go job hunting, maybe it's not so awesome, and someone approaches them and says, do you want to teach? And I can tell you, there are going to be jobs there for physics teachers, and there's going to be a bonus associated with that position when you get hired. So there are a lot of myths out there about physics teachers or teachers in general and what they make, but there's a lot to be learned by the student. So make sure if you're thinking of a physics career, you do your research to find out about things like pay, health care, benefits, because most of you, if I ask you right now, how much do you think a starting teacher makes? Who can give me a shout out? 45,000. Anybody else? Y'all think that sounds about right? You think lower? In Texas, you think it's lower. So guess what? The starting teacher in Texas makes about $55,000. Guess what? How many months do teachers work? 6, 8. They work all the months except the summer months. So they're 9-month employees, so they make $55,000 for 9 months, which means they can do additional things during the summer or get additional job, or they can do nothing. So that's a big myth. One gentleman said it was below 45,000. Wow, that's pretty low. Now some states it is low, but in Texas about $55,000. So when you look at that and the benefits they offer for retirement, it actually compares very well to what a person who's in research at Boeing at a starting level, entry level position would make, because the TRS system or the Texas retirement system is pretty good. You usually retire with about 80% of your salary, so if you are vested all the way in. So think about teaching as a career. It's not as bad as people say, and then you get your cool summers off, well, hot summers in Houston. And if you have a family, that's really, really important when you have a family, because you'll have that free time to spend with your family. So our solution to kind of increase the number of qualified physics teachers in the classroom is our teachHOUSTON program. So the teachHOUSTON program is a collaboration between the College of Natural Science and Mathematics and the College of Education, and all of the STEM departments are included in the College of Natural Science and Mathematics, and faculty, master teachers, and mentors from the local school districts. And it's a program that's in place to address the shortage of math and science teachers. So it's a STEM teacher preparation program. So the students coming into this program earn a major degree in whichever STEM field they wish to: physics, chemistry, math, computer science, etc. But at the same time, they earn their teacher certification through the teachHOUSTON program. But the difference in the teachHOUSTON program and the Department of Education is the teachers who are teaching in the teachHOUSTON program, the majority of them have taught in the high school for 5 to 10 years. They've taught STEM courses, so they've all taught physics, math, chemistry, whatever, and they have served as mentors to teachers and work really well with the administration in the school districts. So the teachers there have the inside scoop on how to teach science to students. The students, when you get your degree, you earn a teachHOUSTON minor, and you can complete this in 4 years. That's huge. So you earn your physics degree, which a lot of people can't complete in 4 years. But in this case, you can complete your physics degree, your teacher certification, all in 4 years. And we have some unique ways to do that. So the program uses research-based approaches to teaching, and we use inquiry-based learning. Pretty much most of their coursework is set around inquiry-based learning. Other things, project-based learning and early intensive field experience. So getting people out into the field as soon as they decide they or think they want to be a teacher. Give them that experience early on. Some other benefits, we have several grants from the National Science Foundation and Department of Education that offer internships, scholarships, professional development, and formal and informal learning opportunities, usually through participation with STEM student camps. So the teachHOUSTON program is a replication site of the UTeach program, which was first started at University of Texas. So they developed this idea of putting the STEM teacher education aspect in the STEM college versus then in the College of Education. And they developed pretty much a whole program around it. They developed the courses and how you should take these courses. And several universities across the U.S. have adopted their model to set up their STEM preparation program, STEM teacher preparation program. Okay, so as I said, ours is really geared towards this inquiry-based learning and the learning field experience. So in 2009, the physics department developed a strong collaboration with teachHOUSTON. So teachHOUSTON was there, and there's, the training of the students from any STEM department. However, you really need a strong collaboration between departments and teachHOUSTON to make sure your students can successfully complete the program, especially with the 4-year program. So we developed degree plans for physics majors and minors to make sure they would be able to complete the program. And the way we did that is we allowed some of the teacher certification courses to serve as advanced physics electives. So this helps the student to be able to complete the program within 4 years. So this is what the degree plan looks like. The courses in red are the teacher preparation courses. They do their student teaching at the end. But the 2 key courses are the Step 1 and Step 2 courses. So the reason I like these 2 courses are very important is because it offers early field experience to any student who wants to be a teacher or think they want to be a teacher. So what you do is you can take one of these courses. We call it a tryout course. You take the course, and in that first course, you actually get experience in the classroom. So if you go and teach in the classroom your first semester and you realize, I don't like little kids, this is horrible, then we've saved you some trouble. Because oftentimes, a lot of programs leave the teaching experience to the end. You do your teaching out in the field in your last semester, and then you get to your last semester and you realize, I hate little kids. I don't want to do this. So this program allows you to kind of get the feel for it, decide if you want to do it, and then if you don't, then you haven't lost very much. You've just lost maybe 1 credit hour at the beginning of your career. So also in 2012, the physics department and, myself and another faculty from teachHOUSTON received a NOIS grant from the National Science Foundation. And the NOIS grant supplies scholarships to students who want to be STEM teachers. So for us, our program focused on training physics and chemistry teachers. And it offered internships through summer camp experience. It offered the scholarship itself. It offered mentor and advising through both physics and teachHOUSTON. But the one key thing that came out of this grant is we developed a physics by inquiry course for any student in teachHOUSTON to participate in. And that's going to be really, really key. So one thing about this program, though, the scholarships are huge, $6,000 a semester. But for each year you accept the scholarship, you have to sign a contract to commit to teach for 2 years in a high-need school district. That's pretty much any school district in the Houston area. So this way we can kind of create a pathway for people to get into the schools and hopefully stay into the schools. We also offer them support after they're in the school, after they graduate. So this Physics by Inquiry course is one of our big things that we developed, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this. So as I said, this was modeled after the You Teach program. So the courses that are in the box that's orange or the prescribed courses that program suggests. So we offer those courses, and in addition, we offer some other courses, the Physics by Inquiry course and 2 other courses that were developed after we had such good success with the Physics by Inquiry course. So again, as you see, you take the 2 introductory courses that get you experience out in the field early on, and then you take a series of courses which will introduce you to curriculum development, pedagogy, and theories behind teaching and learning. Okay, so why do we use this inquiry method? So the research shows that John Dewey says that learning is deep-rooted in experiences. Knowledge arises through the process of inquiry. Inquiry occurs with a community of learners. So how many of you have had a course where you were taught through inquiry? 1, 2, 3. So this is a nice little crowd, and only 3 people have been exposed to inquiry-based teaching. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it and why we are using it. Another researcher says students learn scientific concepts through inquiry. Students should learn science similar to the way scientists construct their research. And Finkel said inquiry teaching methods correlate with how well students learn STEM content. So the inquiry method of teaching and learning has been vetted very well through research and has been proven to be a viable method for helping students to learn STEM content and helping them to learn it even better than traditional methods. However, as you saw around this room, not many of you have been exposed to inquiry-based teaching and learning. So why is that the case? So inquiry has been around for decades, as I said. Teaching science through inquiry has been recommended by many researchers at various institutions as well, National Academy of Sciences, National Research Council. They all recommend that science should be taught through inquiry methods. It's an excellent choice for teaching science. We think it's an excellent choice for preparing pre-service teachers. Why do you think we think it's a great way to prepare the pre-service teachers? That's not a science class, so to speak. It's a science class geared to prepare teachers. What would be the importance of making sure we included inquiry in those classes? Any thoughts or ideas on that? Yeah, this is all proposed by physics education research, but inquiry is only one of the methods. They have some other interactive type methods that they also propose and techniques. But yes, this is definitely one of the methods suggested by physics education research as being an effective method for teaching STEM courses, physics courses in particular. There you go. So physics education research says it improves student learning gains over traditional style teaching and is key to promoting student success in physics. So traditional style teaching is what I'm doing up here, just kind of lecturing to you, telling you what the concepts are, going over it back and forth. Inquiry is very different. You learn through hands-on experiences. So rather than me tell you what the concepts are, I would give you maybe some experiment that you could conduct with some open-ended series of questions that would allow you to use your critical thinking skills to kind of delve out what the concepts would be related to the experiment that you conduct. So you have no knowledge of what the concepts are before you jump into actually doing some hands-on experiments. And it's really, really fun. It's really fun. It can be hectic too. So if this is so great and so good and recommended by everybody, why is it that the majority of teachers fail to employ inquiry teaching methods in their classroom? Why don't they use them? They haven't experienced them a lot. They weren't taught that way. They were not taught that way, yes. And it's more difficult than standard lectures. So I have a past student of mine here, and she is a high school teacher, so she can attest to how much work it takes to prepare to teach inquiry. It does take a little bit of extra work on the teacher's part, so that might deter teachers from doing it. So we see teachers tend to teach as they were taught. As you say, they have never seen it. Most of you have never seen it. So why would I teach that way if I've never I haven't learned that way? Okay? If teachers are willing to reculture these kinds of classrooms, their first obstacle is the influence of their own personal stories. So my own personal story is going to guide what I would do if I was a teacher in the classroom. Same for any student or pre-service teacher who is about to go into the classroom. They're going to use their own experiences to guide what they would actually do in their classroom. So if they have not been taught by inquiry, why in the world would they go out and try to teach their students by inquiry? Okay, so we developed the Physics by Inquiry course. Take away the traditional lecture, stand in front of the classroom, that old guy, and move into something that's more student-centered. Students getting involved, putting their hands on equipment, and using their critical thinking skills to figure out how this relates to physics concepts. Okay, so the Physics by Inquiry course, it encompasses quite a bit. So not only does it have the content knowledge, and our course is designed to be the algebra-based, second part of the algebra-based physics course, introductory physics course. The reason it's not at the level of calculus is because all of these students are STEM majors already. Part of their STEM degree requirement is for them to take the physics course that is calculus-based. So we're not trying to reteach them or teach them physics initially. What we're doing is teaching them how to teach physics using inquiry. So we're teaching it at a little bit of a lower level, but it's the same concepts. It also encompasses pedagogy and helps them to develop curriculum for their classrooms. So now this will build that personal history within the teachers themselves so that they too would want to go out and use physics by inquiry or inquiry style teaching in their classrooms. And this can be done not just for physics, but it can be done for biology, chemistry, or any course. Okay? So our motivation was to increase the number of qualified physics teachers produced at University of Houston. So for about a decade, before the collaboration started between physics and the teachHOUSTON, we had not produced one certified physics teacher. Not one. Not the College of Education, nor teachHOUSTON, nor the Department of Physics. None of us. So we were on a mission. We need to change this. We need to, if we're going to want to get better students into our higher education physics classes, we need to put qualified physics teachers in the secondary classrooms, because better teachers in that classroom sends us better prepared students to the college classrooms. And I'm sure you've all heard your professors here saying, oh my gosh, these students, they don't know this or they don't know that. But we want that to not ever be said. We want the students to come to us well prepared. So increasing the physics content level for these teachers who will get certified either in physics or get the composite certification is key. Like I say, this will help put people in the classroom who are very qualified. Also, as we know, a lot of teachers will be teaching out of field. We offer this course to anybody who's in the teachHOUSTON program. So whether you're a biology major, geo major, anybody can take the Physics by Inquiry course. For us, this is a plus because if the biology major takes the Physics by Inquiry, they're learning the content by inquiry, and when they're assigned to teach physics out of their field, they're better prepared to teach course. So who takes the course? All of the students have to be in the teachHOUSTON program. So you sign up for the teachHOUSTON program. Like I say, to sign up, you just take that intro course and you're in. So there are physics majors, physics minors, any teachHOUSTON student who wants to strengthen their physics knowledge. And like I say, this helps for those who will be assigned to teach out of their field. Non-teachHOUSTON students have also been allowed to take the course. So we've allowed some students who are in our honors biochemistry society, I think that's what it's called, to take the course in place of our second half of the introductory physics course. So you might say, well, this is not the same course, and it isn't. However, we have two tracks for the course. The course is taught one course, one classroom, but the students who are the honors biology, who are not going to be teachers, they have a different curriculum. They do the same inquiry-based lessons, same inquiry-based experiments, but instead of them doing the pedagogy type assignments, which are related to the course and the curriculum development, they do critical thinking and critical skills problems, the typical problems you would do in a regular classroom. The ones who are in teachHOUSTON, they do some of those problems as well, but they also do some curriculum development and pedagogy. So the big thing about this class is when students come out of this class, they leave with already planned inquiry-based lessons they can take into their high school classrooms. That's huge. We just talked about how much time it takes. Not only do you need to have a strong knowledge of the physics, but you also need to have the time to create all of this content that is now hands-on, not out of a book sometimes, to match the needs of your students. So a quick description of the course. We now offer the course in the fall and spring semesters. It can be used as credit towards the BS or BA physics degree or the minor as an advanced elective. And this was really huge. Getting physics faculty to agree with this was a challenge, but nonetheless they did. But this is what makes the program attractive to students. If students have to complete an additional 20-something hours because they have to fulfill all of the credits required for physics and the Teach Houston, then students are going to be deterred from wanting to do that. So we have it where these courses can be serving Teach Houston as well as physics. The course is based off of McDermott's Physics by Inquiry, and if any of you have had a Physics by Inquiry course, you've probably seen that textbook. It's like the Bible for inquiry physics. We use PhET simulations, engineering design, and we also have some of the resources that we've developed ourselves. Have any of you used PhET simulations in your classes? Yeah, it's good. Those are awesome. Okay. Now, inquiry can come in a couple of different stages. So it can be confirmation all the way down to open inquiry. So we generally operate between the confirmational to guided inquiry stage. The open inquiry is something like giving a student a project at the beginning of the semester. They have the whole semester, and usually they work in groups to work on it. You don't really give them any guidance, but you give them resources to do it. So they have to use critical thinking and activities to figure out how to build something that they're going to use to describe and solve the problem that they have. So that's kind of not what most high school physics teachers would do. That's way too open-ended for them. They usually will fall somewhere around the structured inquiry, where students are given an open-ended question and a method to find the solution using their knowledge and scientific evidence to support their conclusions. So they're also given resources to do that. Some type of equipment usually is put in front of them. So if you were to become a teacher and you wanted to use inquiry, you could think about what level of inquiry you would like to have for your students. And you would base that on the students in your classroom. So inquiry practices are things that we use to take out or carry out our inquiry-based teaching and learning. We use project-based learning, where they use projects related to real-world situations, case studies, engage students again in real-world examples, but they work in groups to find out how they're going to solve this problem. And the instructor, instead of teaching or doing anything, kind of just facilitates, walks around, talks to the students, asks questions to guide the students to solutions versus telling them the solution. Then there are meta questions, which I'm going to kind of go through, and field experience. Field experiences are huge. Getting out in the classroom, getting that exposure to what you do in a classroom, that's really important. So for us, we had several research questions we wanted to look at when we put this course in place. How does learning through inquiry impact pre-service teachers' conception of inquiry-based learning? So how do they feel about this inquiry-based learning? Is it something that they feel is worth moving forward with? How does learning science content through inquiry impact the attitudes that pre-service teachers have towards teaching through inquiry? Are student teachers more apt to employ inquiry-based learning subsequent to learning sciences inquiry? And what are some of the roadblocks student teachers encounter once they go out into the field in the classroom? So we used pre and post surveys, interviews, and we collected from quite a few subjects to get our results here. The results I'll present to you are going to focus on 3 pre-service teachers and then kind of a general overlook at results from the whole pool. So 3 pre-service teachers said it was appreciative of the inquiry approach to teaching and learning physics, and they credit their science and teacher educators for helping them get excited about the inquiry method. So if you don't have a science teacher educator that teaches you by inquiry, then you're not going to get excited about it, and most likely you're not going to use that approach in your classroom. Okay, so this is Katrina, just a pseudonym. She said instructors would guide us, scaffold us, but not tell us the answer. So just imagine you are the student learning physics by inquiry, and then you're going to take what you've learned and be the teacher who teaches your students. by inquiry. Two of me. It's pretty cool. Okay. So there was never direct teaching. So that she felt there was never direct teaching from the teacher. So as I said, in inquiry-based teaching and learning, the teacher serves as a facilitator. They really don't, tell you exactly what anything is. They may lead you by questions. She said she appreciated the approach and would try to mimic it in her own teaching as well. And then Ryan said, theoretically, the words are just words dancing around in your head that may or may not mean something to you. Physicist inquiry, you come to a knowledge on your own. It comes from inside of you and grows to be solid and a part of you. So it helps to solidify the person's content knowledge. So you can imagine if you're teaching by inquiry, there are going to be lots of questions by students, a ton. So you have to really be confident and strong in your content knowledge to be able to handle all these questions appropriately. I like the last part. Teacher educators put him into a flight zone. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. So Ryan said, there's something amazing about seeing a student learn through inquiry. It just gives me the chills. He's really excited. It's very freeing, the eureka moment. It lifts you up and you feel your whole body come alive. Is physics really that great? That's awesome. It's tingly and you want to learn and teach that way again and again and again. You want to start that fire again and you want to keep fanning the flames. So this is a situation where he's had an experience where he's watched the students just grow in the experience or in the inquiry methods learning. Jason said, experience needs to come in the front door and theory needs to come through the back door. So that means he felt like he liked the physics by inquiry because it allowed the students to do a little hands-on experimentation before they even knew anything about the theory. So the theory comes last, experiment comes first. This is what leads to innovation. This is how things are discovered and found in the world today. Okay, so just some results from our interviews and our surveys that are related to themes that emerged from the 5 questions I think that we asked. So how does learning through inquiry impact a pre-service teacher's conception of inquiry-based learning? So one of the key things that we found to emerge from most of the surveys was that it improved their confidence. That is huge for a teacher and huge for teacher attrition. If teachers can go into the classroom, be very confident about what they're teaching and help their students to be successful, they're more likely to stay in the classroom. If you're going into the classroom and you're fighting your students every day and they're not learning anything, you're going to be very depressed and not want to be in that situation for long. How does learning science content through inquiry impact the attitudes that pre-service teachers have towards teaching through inquiry? Change my belief in method. Worked for me as a student. So if it worked for them as a student in the classroom learning in the physics by inquiry room, then more than likely they'll go out into the classroom and use it. Truly understood the content, understand better how this may work in a classroom. So it kind of takes away the fear of, can I do this? Should I try this for the pre-service teacher? So all of those are great. And one comment that we had that supports this, it says, this is the only course in which I experienced real inquiry-based instruction rather than occasional model lessons in other classrooms. So some teachers may say they're doing inquiry-based learning, but usually they're either giving you some interactive activity to do, some worksheet that may go along with it, or they're giving who knows what. But it's not true inquiry. True inquiry will allow the student to explore first and kind of delve out what the concepts are related to that exploration. A second support for that, this was the first time during my teacher training that I was put in the seat of one of my pupils. So now you're in the seat of the pupil where you're learning by inquiry, experiencing the struggles that they may face during inquiry-based education. So inquiry-based education is not this easy, straightforward thing. That's why I say teachers have to be strong in the content knowledge because you're going to get an array of questions, a lot of misconceptions, and some that are on target. So you need to know exactly what's going on with the content. This granted me an excellent view into the mindset of a student of science, working hard and often failing to tease apart the complexities of a concept I don't fully understand. This has helped me to empathize with students and to encourage them during the process of learning in a meaningful and personal way. So you don't really understand what the student is going through until you've been in the student's shoes. So you can think of yourselves as students in your classrooms. I'm sure you've been frustrated at some point. So you should say, ask the professor to come sit in your chair, mimic what they're doing, and see how they feel. But oftentimes as teachers, we don't think of that, especially in higher education. Most faculty in the STEM fields teach by traditional teaching. I too teach, not so much by tradition. I don't teach inquiry class. I do teach by including interactive activities throughout the course and questions on concepts throughout the course to kind of keep it from being so boring. But a lot of people don't do that. So it would be great if more higher education professors would pick up on some of this. Now, if University of Houston does offer an inquiry-based physics course, and we offer it for the algebra-based and the calculus-based, but we can only serve about 72 students, and it's in a different style classroom than your traditional lecture style. It has, you know, the round tables, we have screens all around the room, and professors really are there to facilitate. And we have about 4 undergrad and graduate TAs who also assist with that. So if more universities could do that, if we could offer more courses like that, I think we would benefit students in higher education in a better way as well. We don't have a problem with attrition, though. Teachers in higher ed don't go anywhere. We stay till we die. Okay, are student teachers more apt to employ inquiry-based learning subsequent to learning sciences inquiry? Of course. Those who took the course created more inquiry-based lessons and expressed that they would employ it in their classroom. Teach as you were taught. What are some of the roadblocks student teachers encounter in their experience of teaching sciences inquiry? So these were numerous. So just imagine the hands in the room, not very many of them went up when I said who was taught by inquiry. So imagine yourself going out into a classroom to teach by inquiry in a school where the teachers are much older than you are. So the much older than you are most likely were not taught using inquiry. So if you're not a leader already in that school, which you're probably not if you're a first or second year school teacher, then you walk into a set of people who already have a mindset that, you know, we teach this way. And you're going to be the young person to come and tell us we teach this way. That's not going to happen. So there's a lot of issues with being able to maneuver through the other teachers within your discipline who typically you share, how do you say it, Carol? You share, you're like the team leader or the department leader. Department leader. So the departments teach a particular curriculum for the course. So if you go in there and try to tell those folks who've been doing this for 20 odd years that now you want to do it this way, that's usually not the case. But there are ways around that, and we have a huge mentoring program for our students when they go out into the classroom so that we can help them maneuver those obstacles. One of the ways we teach them to maneuver this is to, if you're in a group where they're not making changes, try to introduce one thing, you know, maybe a semester, and invite the teachers to come in and observe your classroom and what you do, and see if you can kind of sell them on what you're doing in your classroom. And students have had a lot of success with that. Time, again, our Physics by Inquiry course allows you to develop curriculum for your classroom while you're in the class. So you don't have to go out and recreate a whole set of lessons. We also offer professional development opportunities where you can take what we call cookbook style lessons and convert them to inquiry style lessons. So we give the students ample opportunity to make and develop curriculum before they even get into the classroom. Dragons in the backyard. So when you work in a school and there's a dragon in your backyard, you had better prepare for the dragon. The dragon, of course, is the accountability of the system. So we know about this testing stuff. And if I'm teaching by inquiry, I need to make sure my students will still be able to pass the test. So that's a big dragon in the backyard that hinders a lot of students from even trying this. They have that pressure from the administration to make sure the students are successful on all of these assessments. So they sometimes may abandon using the inquiry-based method to make sure they meet these accountability systems that have been set up for them. So to support that, one student said, inquiry-based teaching is on my campus considered at best novelty and at worst a myth. Wow. And so I have struggled to weave my own methods through the fabric of the pre-existing status quo. So students are trying to figure out how do they maneuver this. Pre-service teachers have to have a lot of things to deal with. But I have to say, these students manage to work around it. And when the mentoring and induction that we do through the program, we help them to get past these obstacles. So what has been the impact of the Physics by Inquiry course? Based on our surveys and results from our interviews, we see that it has improved the students, the pre-service teachers' self-efficacy and confidence. They are more confident going into the classroom because they have a stronger content knowledge, and then they have this self-efficacy knowing that they can go in and control their classroom and teach them physics or chemistry or biology by inquiry. As I said, we give them many ways to develop pedagogy for their classroom through professional development. The cookbook lessons turn to inquiry lessons, and we support them and discuss how they can get around these barriers. Now, the barriers are not just with teachers or upper administration. You can also have barriers of students. Students haven't been taught by inquiry either. So they're coming into maybe a science classroom that's already hard. Many of them see science and math as hard. And then you also want them to learn it in a way that they've never seen before. So you really have to be able to manage your classrooms and help them to understand how this method is going to be better and beneficial for them. It allows pre-service teachers to experience the process of inquiry learning. As I said, you'll teach the way you learn science as a scientist, and it changes the mental model of the classroom prior to student teaching. Remember, student teaching doesn't occur until your last semester, right before you graduate. So this helps to prepare you of what you want the classroom to look like before you get out into the field. So we are hopeful and so far have been very successful, as all of the students who've graduated with the physics certification are still teaching. We hope that something like this in programs for teacher educators will help to improve retention and attrition rates. So some of the key outcomes, remember I said we had graduated 0. So since 2014, we've since graduated 11 physics teachers. And you may say, 11 teachers, that's nothing. That is huge. UH Clear Lake, how many of y'all graduated? But that's we laugh at that, but if you go around, and you can go to very large institutions to very small institutions, and you'll find out that very many of them are not graduating any physics teachers at all. So there are a lot of different efforts that have been put in place in the last few years. One in particular is the Physics Teacher Education Coalition by the American Physical Society. This coalition is designed specifically to increase the number of qualified physics teachers in the classroom. And they bring together physics faculty from around the country. So it's not education folks. We're not dependent on the education or colleges of education to train the physics teachers. We've realized that if this is important to us, this is something that the physics faculty and physics departments need to take as their own burden. So it brings together faculty from around the nation. We share ideas, best practices in the field, and try to help one another build programs at our institutions that will produce physics teachers. So as I said, all of them are still teaching, and they're in the Houston area. That Physics by Inquiry course, remember I said, is open to not just the teachHOUSTON students, but some of our honors biology has served 115 students. And that number should increase because I don't think it includes the spring 2019 enrollment. And And one of the things we were really excited about is because of the success of this course, we created 2 similar courses, one for biology, biochemistry, and a physics for pre-service teachers at the middle school level. This one is actually taught through teachHOUSTON and the College of Education. The biology, biochemistry is taught through teachHOUSTON. So this is one of our alums, Josh Kerr. He's a teacher at Spring Branch ISD. He says that, but he talks about physics and how great it is. And then this is another alumni. He is a math major with a physics minor, but guess what he's teaching? Physics. He was hired to teach physics. So he's also one of the Phys Tech Local Teachers of the Year, which we're very proud of that. He runs a, oh gosh, what's the name of it? It's like a Fab Lab, but it's not a Fab Lab. It's called Makerspace. He runs a Makerspace program every year. He's at Clements, I want to say Clements High School. Maybe I got the wrong high school, but I think it's Clements. So doing wonderful things, wonderful things. So I'm just going to end. I know y'all are tired and ready to go home. But this, hopefully if we have Wi-Fi, we can show just a little clip of the course. What is all of this? Do I want to enable that? Nope. And I don't know if you'll hear it. No? Uh-oh. Let's see. Okay, because yeah, this volume's up. It's already playing. Yeah, it's not, no sound. So you can watch it and imagine what they're saying. But basically, we're talking about, you know, sure, I can do that. Just talking about what they do in the classroom, and students are given their account. Has it stopped? And I'll just let it kind of play through for just a little bit. So this is one of our master teachers, Paige Evans. She taught in the school district for about 17 years, and she came back and got her PhD, and now she's pretty much the director of the teachHOUSTON program, and she teaches the physics by inquiry course. So you got to hear it. It's just no fun to watch. They're saying some really good stuff and some funny stuff, because the first student I think they showed there, he said he had no idea what was going on in this class, but it turned out to be one of the best classes he had. And then there's another student who said, oh my gosh, where is she? Initial days. Yeah, she was talking about, I didn't have any idea how I was going to pass this physics course. So she was not a physics major. I think she was a biology major. She was like, this physics by inquiry stuff was really sounding scary to me, but she ended up really liking it. Okay, so that's no fun to watch, so I'll stop it there. I'll just stop it there. So that's it. I hope I've inspired you to at least think about a career as a teacher. If not, just make sure you tell your friends who are in physics, if they're not sure what their career choice is going to be, that they could consider teaching. Right now at University of Houston, we have some pathways to earn a teaching degree. For instance, if you're about to graduate, you didn't know about these teaching programs, and you still think you want to teach, we have right now a program that offers scholarships, and they're very good scholarships, that will allow you to get your teaching certification in 1.5 years. So it's a post-baccalaureate program. We also have a master's program, but the master's program is for people who are already teaching in the field, where they can come back and earn their master's in about 1.5 years. And it's all supported, and I'm talking good money. That $6,000 a semester is real. Yes. So if you have any ideas and think about that and want to have more information, just contact me at University of Houston. And I thank you all for being patient with us. Any questions? I know this is different from the science talks you hear all the time, so.
What kind of classroom do you teach inquiry-based?
So it's not a total scale-up style classroom as it was developed by Beichner and crew. It's a classroom. It seats 72 people, and we have about 10, 12 round tables that have outlets in the middle where you can plug in your computer, but we also have space on those tables to set up equipment. So the students work in small groups. Around the room, there are screens so that if the teacher is putting up something, it will be projected all around the room so all of the groups can see it. And then we have about 4 to 5 graduate TAs and graduate or undergraduate TAs and the professor who just stroll around the room. They stroll around the room, listen to the conversations. Now, the students are given handouts to help to guide them. As I said, remember the inquiry can be various levels. So we give them mostly structured inquiry-based worksheets so that they can work on those. But we also take some time and do problem solving because we know if they're going to pass the test, they really need to have the problem solving skills. So we also work some of that in. But something that U of H has done in the past, I want to say 3 or 4 years, I don't know how many years it's been, maybe about 5 really, is offering recitations to the students who are in the introductory algebra-based courses. So the recitations are run similar to the inquiry style classrooms where the students come in. Actually, they're run by undergraduate teaching assistants, and they come in and work with them with problem solvings or answering any questions about concepts they may not have understood during the actual class time.
So on your slide with roadblocks, I know she had one on there, materials, that kind of skipped over.
Yes.
I'm curious, I know a lot of school districts in this area don't even have enough money for students to have books.
Right.
How much more expensive is it to teach these inquiry-based courses where you need the additional equipment for hands-on experiments and things like that?
So very good. So the question was, there was a point on the slide about materials as being a roadblock, and oftentimes school districts don't have money to support purchase of materials for classes like this. They don't even have money to buy books. So how do we handle that? So oftentimes we will loan out equipment, but we've taught the students to use equipment that's things you can find around the house for a lot of the experiments that they can do. So some of them, yes, we do have some of the high-tech ones where you may need a force probe or something like that. We have equipment that any student who comes through our program can borrow. We may not have enough for them to have it for, say 10 in the classroom, but we may have enough for them to have 5 groups in their classroom. So they can borrow equipment from the University of Houston through the teachHOUSTON program. But we also equip our students with ways of finding grant money. So we've kind of honed in on how to find grant money for our students. So we want to let them know that there are ways for them to get grant money. We had a student to graduate in her first, not even 6 months, she had already acquired a grant to get equipment for her classroom. So we try to equip the students so that they know where to look and how to write the grant. That is actually a part of their professional development, is a grant writing course. It's not a full course, but at least some introduction to how to get that. But we tell students to work with what they have. There are lots of lessons out there, and they can also take a cookbook style lesson and transform it into an inquiry style lesson. Usually if they're using cookbook style lessons, they already have some type of equipment available to them. So they can change that lesson based on what they already have to something that is more inquiry. But for students who are in poorer school districts where they cannot afford to buy anything, you have to really be creative. You do not have to have actual equipment in front of them. That's what those PhET simulations are for. So you can build an inquiry style lesson around a PhET simulation. Even if every student in the classroom does not have a computer, you can have one computer. You can project that one computer up on the screen, and guess what? Now you have, everybody has a computer. So those are some ways to get around that. Yeah. That was a question. Oh yeah, over 20 years. So the question is, this has been around for a long time. Why are people pushing this type of learning now? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Yes.
We're dealing with students that don't learn. They have access to this stuff 24/7 phone and iPads and everything else. So traditional methods of teaching don't work for them because they don't want to sit and listen. Because they could do 20 things at once on that iPad on that.
Yes. Anybody want to add to that? You want to add to your own question? Answer my own question. I love it. Yeah, so that helps to have that hands-on stuff in front of you to touch, where you can no longer be lazy. You can't go Google it. You actually have to do something to figure it out. But if you think about how is the U.S. ranked when it comes to math and science? Yeah, we just gonna do this. We're not gonna give any numbers. We're the worst. We're not up there. So researchers are trying to find ways to engage the millennials. That's y'all. That's not me. Millennials don't learn the same way that I learned. I learned very well with the traditional style teaching. Did okay. Wasn't too bored by it. But because you have things like cell phones, computers, and so many other things where you can Google everything, we think we can find the answer to everything by just Googling it, you're not engaged in the learning process. So this is why a lot of, I think, higher education faculty lose students as well. Because if we continue to teach in the traditional style, students are really disengaged rather than engaged. So we have to do something to get the students to be more engaged. And this inquiry, interactive type teaching is now, like you say, the big push of all researchers and across the nation. And not just in physics. This is in just about every discipline now. So that's the old schoolers. And I guess I'm the old schooler now. Maybe I'm not quite the old schooler. Let's say a few years older than I am. Those people still feel that I need to go in the classroom with a book and a piece of chalk. Chalk, literally chalk. Not a marker, whiteboard marker, chalk. So you know how old school that is. And they feel like I learned this way. Why should I change the way I teach? These students should be able to learn the same way. But students are just not programmed the same as they were back in the day. Have to make the adjustments. If we don't make the adjustments, we're going to remain at the bottom in a lot of these areas.
Also, I think that for physics in particular, there's probably a lot more pressure because it seemed like, I guess when I was in school, the idea that, maybe 20% of students would pass the classes was considered pretty acceptable. And nowadays, that just goes
Yes,
by.
that's right.
So I think under physics, it's been more, you have to, students need to learn it actually.
Yeah.
You can't just teach it and just, well, they don't pass it.
So yeah, when I took physics and you sat in the classroom, depends on the professor, they might come in and say, look to your right, look to your left. One of y'all not gonna finish this class. It's like 50% of y'all are gonna come out of here. This is how it's been. This is how it's been. So you need to get used to it. I don't know if that's gonna be you or your neighbor is gonna make it. So there's pressure from upper administrations, at least in higher education, to make sure that students are successful in their introductory classes. And usually those classes are huge. At UH, we have about 250 kids in each lecture. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people to try to reach out and touch. So you need to tailor your teaching styles to make sure you can reach those students. But what's important is to do that before they get to college. We want them to be exposed to this early on while they're in high school so that when they come to us, they're ready to go. They're engaged, they're ready to learn, and they want to do these interactive activities that we have. We get a lot of pushback from the students enrolled in the inquiry class. We advertise it. We tell them specifically that this is the type of course that it is. The course is a 3-hour-long course. So what students do is they look at their schedule and they say, oh, 3-hour class, I'm going to just take that one and I'll be done with it. But they don't read the description. So then they come into the classroom and they're totally like, what is this? I didn't sign for this. Actually, you did. And then they get in there and they can't keep their phones off. It's very hard to teach students for 3 hours without totally losing them. So you really have to have activities that engage them, that make them think, so that by the time they get engaged in the work, they kind of lose track of time and they're not trying to get on their cell phones. So we still get, quite a bit of evaluation comments that say, I don't like this class, and I didn't know I was signing up for this class, and this is the worst way to teach. But then we get the ones that say, I really enjoyed this. I love this. This was better than any lecture I could have just sat in, where I probably would have been sleeping.
big gap between that technology and the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And there has not been anything that has been done to how to blend both of positions together and interact them.
That's right.
There has not been that connection, that interaction between all these computers and all these, because everybody's I mean, you name it.
Yeah, you name it. Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
electronic. But then you got this other side.
With the knowledge behind it.
The books are there in a library, sitting there collecting dust.
Yes.
And the question is, how can we can use imagination to take all those dusty books and
Mm-hmm.
bring them
Yes.
into the computer system where everybody is?
Yes.
That's the question.
So how do we bridge the gap, basically? How do we bridge the gap between the technology and what they're used to having and the actual knowledge behind this? So I've had students to say to me, I'll never use this when I get my job. Why do I have to learn about inclined planes and boxes rolling down planes? You know, they say, I never use this. It's not about using that in your job. It's about building critical thinking skills and how to solve problems. If you don't know how to solve problems and think, you cannot have innovation. Nothing new will come. But you have to have the background knowledge to be able to move forward into this technology world. How many of you know how your cell phone works? You're physics major, so I would expect some of you. But you go out there and ask anybody else how their phone works. And they're like, I don't know, it works. You turn this button on and it works. So we need to be able to help students understand the knowledge that's behind all the things that they're using today, so then think about things in the future. How can you think about the future if you just know that this works? I don't care how it works. You're never going to think outside the box and no innovation will happen.
So I know you've been mentioning a lot about high school teachers
Mhm.
and stuff like that, but how are you integrating this type of teaching to these teachers and putting them at an elementary level or junior high? Because I feel like it's harder for a high school student to grasp this kind of learning because their whole life they haven't
Mhm.
been taught that way. Whereas if you
Right.
start from the bottom up, and it's going to be easier for them to understand and be able
Yes.
to build on those skills when they get to that age.
So very good question. Her question was, I'm talking about all of this and inquiry for the high school level, but what about starting at the younger age to help to build this up? That would be wonderful if we could do that. We're struggling to get it at the high school age. So we can start the high school age. We're hoping that that would at least transfer into the higher education. At the younger ages, kids at that age love to explore. At the middle, love to explore. But at those ages, they have to learn a whole lot of stuff. And you remember, those are the building blocks when you start in kindergarten. And so there are lots of different schools, Montessori school, constructivist-based schools that actually teach kids. Actually, my kids went to a daycare that was like that. They didn't teach them, take the paper home and write an A. They taught them in different ways so that they could explore and then figure out what an A goes with or how an A looks. But that's not something that's commonplace. We kind of leave those younger years for the students to be taught kind of traditionally. But I agree with you. I think that's a place we should start, because how many of you tinkered when you were little? You love to build and go and stack things and figure out how it's going to fall apart. And then by the time you got to high school, you were like, what? Build what? Touch what? Some of you may have continued, but the majority of people lose that interest. And that's what we're trying to do. Make sure we kind of keep that interest. Like you said, I think we should take it to the lower level, but right now we're trying to just at least get it into the high schools. Very good question and observation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I have a toddler now in kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like you're right. It's like they're kind of taught like that in the early ages,
Mm-hmm.
and then somehow we transition them into this whole lecture environment,
Mm-hmm.
and then now we're trying to transition them
Back. Right.
so it's kind of crazy because
It
it's
is.
in between.
It
They
is.
just be consistent.
Yeah, the 1950 style classroom. Yep. So it's a challenge, but at least we're trying to make, some efforts through our program to equip the teacher so that at least they can go out and be prepared to teach the students. Now, like I said, we send them out there with the tools. Will they use the tools in the toolbox? We don't know. We're there to help them and mentor them and try to help them to make sure they do use the tools, but we don't have a guarantee that they won't have enough too many roadblocks to continue on that pathway, but we would hope so. And I would love to see a lot of this go into the middle school. So that other physics course for middle school teachers, it is taught using engineering-based or engineering project-based learning. So it's all centered around projects and builds. So they build bridges and they build, using toothpicks and things like that for the middle school teachers to take into their classroom. We have not done anything at the elementary level. The Teach Houston program is geared towards 7 through 12. The College of Education does the rest. So if it happens, it would probably have to come through the College of Education, and that's usually not going to happen because they are general education. So they do have some STEM education specific courses, and they do teach with some kind of hands-on guidance, but not as focused as we do for the high school level. Yes. Thank you all for listening.
Also, you guys have your papers from last week, and I'm going to get your papers from this week, so please make sure you pick them up.
How do you resource technology?